I was standing at the kitchen sink, rinsing wine glasses from the night before, when the text came in. Brittney Coates, my sister-in-law, Clinton's older sister, and my personal thorn since the day I married into the Coates family. She didn't even have the decency to call. The message was short, cold, and barbed with her signature faux politeness. Hey, just a heads up, dinner at Mom and Dad's this Sunday is just for blood family. Nothing personal, 2 hearts. Nothing personal. Brittney loved pretending her venom was dipped in sugar. After 8 years of marriage, I knew better than to think it was just an offhand remark. Still, I stared at the message like maybe, just maybe, I was reading it wrong. But there it was, in black and white. Banned. Clinton was still upstairs, shaving for work, so I took a breath and called out, "Hey babe, did you know your sister said I'm not invited to Sunday dinner?" A pause, a beat too long. Then, oh, yeah, I think Britt mentioned something. It's just family stuff. That phrase. Just family stuff. It made my stomach tighten. I walked upstairs to find him in the bathroom mirror, blade to cheek, not meeting my eyes. "Since when am I not family?" I asked. He gave me a vague smile, one that never reached his eyes. "It's nothing. Don't make a big deal out of it." Right then, I felt it. Something shifting. Clinton had always defended me, especially to Brittney, who'd never missed a chance to call me a gold digger behind manicured hands. But this time he seemed relieved I wasn't going, as if my absence was convenient. The entire week that followed felt off. Clinton was present, but only in body. He came home late. He silenced his phone around me. When I asked how work was, he'd changed the subject. And when I pressed about the dinner, he deflected with rehearsed calm, like he was expecting me to ask but hoping I wouldn't push. My instincts told me something wasn't right. It wasn't until Friday night, 2 days before the dinner, that I got the confirmation I didn't know I was looking for. I was lying in bed when a message pinged on Clinton's iPad, which he'd left unlocked on the nightstand. The text preview read, "Travis Delaney. C can finally say it tonight. Hope Britt doesn't gloat too hard." It took me half a second to realize the message wasn't meant for me. I opened the thread. Yes, I know, I shouldn't have. But I did. And what I found twisted my stomach into knots. Travis, Clinton's cousin, had been texting back and forth with him about Sunday dinner. Only it wasn't a dinner anymore. It was a staged performance. The family already knew Clinton was divorcing me. They were prepping for a, quote, calm supportive reveal, with Brittney leading the charge to guide him through it. I couldn't breathe. Divorce? No warnings. No conversations. No therapy. Just a carefully plotted dinner where the man I loved would erase me from his life like I was some expired product on a shelf, and do it with a plate of pot roast and wine in hand. I confronted Clinton immediately. He didn't deny it. He didn't even try. "I was going to tell you after the dinner," he said flatly, adjusting the cuff of his shirt, as though he were confirming a lunch reservation instead of tearing apart our lives. "After? You were going to tell me after you paraded it in front of your family?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "I didn't want drama," he said. "I thought if I told them first, they'd be prepared. You tend to react." React? My blood boiled. "You mean I don't stay silent while your sister bullies me, and you orchestrate a secret divorce like a damn magician?" He flinched. For once I saw guilt flicker across his face, but it didn't last. "I didn't want this to be ugly," he muttered. "That's when I knew." He was never planning for it, to be fair, just quiet. And that made it worse. I barely slept that night. I kept replaying every moment from the past 6 months. Every missed call, every business trip, every time Brittney had snubbed me, and Clinton stayed silent. It had all been part of the unraveling, and I'd been too busy trying to hold things together to see the string snapping. But the worst part wasn't Clinton's betrayal. It was that Brittney, my sister-in-law, who had smiled at my wedding, toasted at our anniversaries, and pretended to welcome me into the family, wasn't just complicit. She was engineering this. Why? That question haunted me, and I promised myself I wouldn't go quietly. If they wanted a divorce, they'd get one, but not before I knew exactly what they were hiding, and why. Because I could feel it in my bones. This wasn't just about a marriage ending. This was a setup, and I was going to find out what game they were playing. After Clinton admitted he planned to announce our divorce at dinner, without me, I thought I'd felt the full depth of his betrayal. I was wrong. The next morning I watched him dress like nothing had happened. Crisp shirt, cufflinks, expensive cologne. He even hummed as he tied his tie. Like a man preparing to step into a life that didn't include me anymore. You really weren't going to tell me until after? I asked from the doorway, arms crossed, heart still aching. He paused, glanced at me in the mirror and shrugged. It would have been easier that way. Cleaner. That word again? Clean. Like I was something dirty to wash off. I wanted to scream. To throw something. But I didn't. I couldn't. Not yet. I needed answers. I needed clarity. So instead, I asked calmly, "How long have you been planning this?" Clinton hesitated. Just for a second. A few weeks. But I knew he was lying. His tell? The way his jaw clenched, and he blinked twice before answering. He'd been preparing this for months. Maybe longer. And that meant one terrifying thing. I'd missed all the signs. That morning, I began looking at everything differently. I combed through credit card statements, found charges I didn't recognize, law office retainers, storage unit rentals, 2 hotel stays under a fake name. The same name he used to prank call his fraternity brothers in college. Only this wasn't a prank. This was a plan. Worse yet, Clinton's phone became glued to his hand. And when he wasn't glued to it, it was on Do Not Disturb. His excuses grew thinner. Just work. Just legal stuff. Just family stress. I was his wife, and yet I'd become a stranger watching him slowly erase me. But the moment everything truly shifted happened that evening, when I got a phone call from Clinton's cousin Travis Delaney. Or rather, he thought he was calling someone else. It started with an accidental FaceTime, I answered, and he blinked in surprise. "Oh shoot, I meant to call Lindsay," he slurred. Travis was already 2 whiskeys deep, hair a mess, tie undone. Clearly he'd been drinking. "You meant to call Lindsay, huh?" I asked, keeping my voice light. "Talking about Sunday dinner again?" He froze, and that's when I knew. He knew everything. I don't know what you've heard, but look, I probably shouldn't be saying anything, okay? Too late, I said, already recording the conversation on my phone. "Say what you were gonna say, Travis." He looked guilty, like a kid caught sneaking cigarettes in church. "See, he's been planning this for a while. Brittney's been pushing him, said it needed to happen before the trust disbursement or something. I don't know, I'm not involved, I swear." The trust disbursement? That was the first time I heard those words, and they hit like a bomb. "You mean his father's estate?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "Yeah," Travis muttered. "Brittney said if they don't file the paperwork before— Wait, crap. This is off the record, right?" I ended the call. Suddenly, Clinton's urgency made perfect sense. This wasn't about love lost or incompatibility, it was about money. If we were still married when the estate was split, I'd be legally entitled to half of his share. But if the divorce was filed before then, I got nothing. This wasn't a breakup, it was a heist. I spent the next day in quiet observation, watching Clinton pretend to be the good husband. He brought me coffee, asked if I wanted to watch a movie, played the part, and I played mine, the clueless wife, the trusting fool. But under the surface, I was already preparing. I dug through our home office and found 2 things that made my stomach flip. A legal pad with Clinton's handwriting, listing assets, dates, and the phrase "file before May 1st" circled twice. A manila envelope tucked inside his briefcase, addressed to Graham Rylan Esquire. A name I'd never heard before. I Googled him. Divorce attorney, specializing in asset protection. Aggressive. Expensive. I wasn't just being pushed out, I was being legally dismantled. That night, Clinton came home late again. I asked how work was. He said fine. I asked what the surprise at the family dinner was supposed to be, playing dumb. He smiled. Just something special, a family thing. A surprise for me? He hesitated. Not exactly. He kissed my forehead and walked away. And as he disappeared down the hall, I whispered to myself, he has no idea what's coming. Because if Brittney and Clinton thought they could erase me before Sunday dinner, then they clearly forgot who taught the Coates family how to throw a party. The real surprise? I was going to crash their little announcement with fireworks of my own. Sunday arrived like a storm cloud. Clinton left early, dressed in his navy blazer and that smug little smile he wore when he thought he had the upper hand. He kissed me on the cheek like nothing was wrong, like he wasn't headed to a dinner where he'd publicly declare the end of our marriage while I stayed home, none the wiser. Too bad for him. I already knew everything, and I wasn't staying home. I waited 10 minutes after he left, then changed into a sleek black dress, one he'd bought me for our 5th anniversary, back when he still saw me as an asset, not a liability. I looked sharp, dangerous, and fully in control. This wasn't a desperate plea to save my marriage. This was an ambush. I arrived at his parents' house just as they were sitting down to eat. Through the front window, I could see the entire Coates clan gathered around the long cherrywood table. Brittney was at the far end, wine glass already in hand, her blonde hair twisted into a smug chignon. Clinton sat beside her, back straight, hands folded, rehearsed. He was waiting for the right moment to make his announcement. Too bad I beat him to it. I didn't bother knocking. The door wasn't locked. Of course it wasn't. Why would it be, when the traitor didn't expect a confrontation? I stepped inside like I belonged, because I did. 8 years in this family bought me that right. Heads turned as I entered the dining room. Conversations died mid-sentence. Clinton's fork froze mid-air. Brittney's jaw literally dropped. Their mother, Delilah Coates, blinked in horror like she was witnessing a ghost. "Don't stop on my account," I said sweetly, walking over to an empty chair. "I heard there was a family dinner." Travis, bless his whiskey-stained heart, muttered under his breath, "Oh shit." Clinton stood abruptly. "What are you doing here?" I smiled at him. Calm, lethal. Sitting down. That's what people do at dinner, right? Delilah clutched her pearls, literally clutched them, and Brittney looked like she was about to spontaneously combust. "I think there's been a misunderstanding," Clinton said carefully, as if he were defusing a bomb. "There has," I agreed. "You mistook me for someone who wouldn't show up once she figured out her husband planned to publicly divorce her over pot roast and Pinot Noir." His face paled. That hit landed. Brittney recovered quickly. "This was meant to be a private family affair," she said, her voice tight. I tilted my head. "And yet your plan involved every single person in this room except me. You didn't think I'd find out, did you?" Silence. The room sat like a pressure cooker, every family member afraid to make eye contact. Even Clinton's younger brother, Ethan, looked uncomfortable, fidgeting with his napkin like it might save him from being dragged into the drama. "I wasn't trying to hurt you," Clinton finally said. "I just didn't want it to get dramatic." "Oh, so instead of telling me like a man, you let your sister orchestrate a betrayal behind my back? You plotted a silent divorce reveal like it was a gender reveal party?" "I didn't plot anything," Clinton said defensively. "Really?" I reached into my clutch and pulled out a printout of the text thread between Travis and Clinton. "Then what's this?" Travis nearly choked on his wine. "You weren't supposed to see that?" "I wasn't supposed to see any of it, Travis," I snapped. "But thank you. Your drunk texting saved me a lot of time." Clinton looked like he wanted to disappear. But I wasn't done. I turned to Brittney. "And you, so obsessed with your brother's life. Why? What's in it for you?" She raised her chin. "I'm looking out for him. He deserves better." "Better?" I laughed. "You mean someone who won't stand in the way of his inheritance? Someone who won't ask questions when you start siphoning funds from your dead father's trust?" That silenced the room. Delilah's fork clattered against her plate. "What are you talking about?" I leaned forward, voice low and pointed. Your daughter has been feeding Clinton lies to rush this divorce. Why? Because if we're still married when the trust is distributed, I'm entitled to half. But if we're divorced, Brittney gets more. Funny how that works. Brittney's face turned stone cold. You have no proof. Oh, don't worry, I will. I stood slowly, letting my words settle like smoke in the air. Clinton looked like he'd aged 10 years. This wasn't supposed to go like this. I leaned close to him, voice venom sweet. Then maybe you shouldn't have planned a betrayal over Sunday dinner. And just like that, I left. I didn't cry in the car. I didn't scream. I just drove home in silence, fingers clenched tight on the wheel. They thought they had it all figured out. But I had just served the appetizer. The main course? Revenge. After crashing the Coates family dinner and blowing Clinton's secret wide open, I expected things to go quiet. Instead, the fallout spread like wildfire. Clinton didn't come home that night. Instead, I received a text from him at 2:13 a.m. Need space. Staying at the condo for a while. Not our condo, his bachelor pad from before the marriage. The one I'd insisted he keep, just in case his brother needed a crash pad while job hopping. Turns out I was the one getting crashed out. But even in my fury, I knew one thing. Clinton wasn't smart enough to orchestrate all this alone. That kind of coordinated legal takedown, timed perfectly to the estate's disbursement window, required a puppet master. And all signs pointed to Brittney, my golden-haired, passive-aggressive sister-in-law with a Barbie smile and a butcher's instincts. So I started digging, and it didn't take long to uncover her fingerprints on every part of my unraveling. The first clue came from an unlikely source, Clinton's assistant, Megan, who reached out off the record. I shouldn't be saying this, she whispered over the phone, but you deserve to know. Brittney's been coming into the office for months, meeting with Graham Rylan. At first I thought she was helping Clinton, but then I overheard them talking about you, about how easy it would be to get you out of the picture. Graham? I asked, my stomach twisting. The divorce lawyer, she confirmed. Brittney said she'd build a case that you were unstable. Something about the Xanax you took after your miscarriage 2 years ago. Clinton didn't even look comfortable, but he didn't stop her either. I hung up, stunned. They were using my trauma as ammo. My heartbreak, my healing, was now a strategy. And Brittney? She wasn't just helping Clinton. She was driving the damn getaway car. Fueled by rage, I scoured old emails and social media for anything I'd missed. Threads, messages, any signs of Brittney's involvement in the months leading up to the ambush. That's when I found it. A forwarded email, sent accidentally to my inbox months earlier, buried in a thread with Clinton and his family. At the time, I hadn't noticed. But now, with fresh eyes, it screamed conspiracy. In the email, Brittney wrote to Clinton, "She's too emotional. That's how we win. Frame it around her episodes. The family will understand. You just need to trust me, Clink." Clink, that pet name she gave him when they were kids. It had always made me uncomfortable. Too intimate. Too possessive. Back then, I told myself I was imagining things. Now I realized I wasn't. Brittney had spent years eroding my place in this family. She'd undermined my holiday plans. "Oh, Clinton didn't tell you. We're doing Thanksgiving at Mom's instead." She'd mock my career. "You know, she tries to run a business from home. Must be exhausting to play pretend all day." She once even questioned my fertility at brunch, loudly, in front of everyone. Still no baby news? Well, sometimes our bodies know better than we do. And Clinton? He let her. Because deep down, Clinton feared Brittney. Not in the traditional sense. He wasn't scared of her. He was dependent on her. She had always been the fixer of the family. When their dad got sick, she handled the estate paperwork. When their mother spiraled, Brittney managed the image. She was the keeper of secrets and the cleaner of messes. But that also meant she knew where the bodies were buried and how to bury new ones, including mine. She was smart, ruthless, And worse, she knew me. She knew how to weaponize my silence, twist my compassion into weakness, and make me look unstable with a few strategic anecdotes. She once smashed a wine glass during an argument. She forgot to pay the property taxes and almost lost the lake house. She tried to hide her anxiety meds, probably abusing them. All half-truths, all twisted, and now? All part of a dossier she had allegedly compiled with Graham Rylan. A character assassination file. I knew what this meant. If they took it to court first, they'd control the narrative. I'd be painted as unfit, unwell, and unworthy of a share in the estate, or even spousal support. But I had a plan of my own. I printed out every piece of evidence I'd gathered. Emails, texts, calendar entries, showing Brittney's secret meetings with Graham. I logged my medications, therapy records, and even got statements from my psychiatrist and Megan. I made copies of everything. Then I scheduled a meeting with my own lawyer, Margot Jennings. A powerhouse. A shark in lipstick. Known for tearing apart crooked family court schemes with surgical precision. After reading through the documents, she looked up and said, "Oh, honey, they picked the wrong woman to screw with." And I believed her. Because this time, Brittney's not just the saboteur. She's a saboteur standing on a cliff of lies. And I'm the one with the shovel. I had always known Brittney Coates was dangerous, but the truth? The depth of her betrayal? It cut deeper than any knife. After my meeting with Margot Jennings, I felt the fire inside me burn hotter. The chessboard was set. But the game was far from over. Then came the bombshell. It wasn't Clinton who broke the silence. It was a carefully worded anonymous tip sent to my phone with a grainy photo attached. The image showed Brittney and Graham Rylan, Clinton's divorce lawyer, at an upscale restaurant late one night, leaning in close, hands barely inches apart, smiles far too intimate for professional. The message was simple. They're more than partners in this divorce. She's sleeping with him. I stared at the photo for what felt like hours. The realization hit like a freight train. This wasn't just a family feud or a messy divorce. This was a calculated conspiracy with a twisted personal angle. I had imagined Brittney would stop at nothing to speed up the divorce and secure her inheritance advantage, but I never thought it would get this personal. This was no longer just about property and power. It was about secret alliances, betrayal woven into the fabric of my husband's family. That night, I confronted Clinton over a phone call. "I know about Brittney and Graham," I said bluntly, trying to keep my voice steady. There was a long pause on the other end. Clinton's voice was quieter, colder than before. "It's complicated." "Complicated? You mean your sister is seducing your lawyer to screw me over and you just accept it?" "I don't want to fight anymore," he said, almost pleading. "Wait for that," I snapped. "Not when I have evidence." Clinton sighed heavily, and for the first time I heard the cracks in his carefully constructed facade. "They think they're protecting the family legacy by destroying me?" I spat. That call left me shaken, but it also steeled my resolve. The next morning I met with Margot again, laying out the new evidence. "This changes everything," Margot said, sliding the grainy photo across the table. "If Brittney and Graham are involved personally, it means they're colluding to control the narrative and the legal outcome. That's a conflict of interest and grounds for disbarment and legal sanctions." "Can we use this?" I asked. "Absolutely, but it's a double-edged sword. Brittney's not just a manipulative sister-in-law. She's a woman with a powerful lover who has influence over your divorce proceedings. This won't just be a courtroom battle. It'll be a war." I swallowed hard. As days passed, the evidence piled up. Secret dinners, late-night texts between Brittney and Graham, mysterious financial transactions traced to accounts linked to both of them. The more I uncovered, the more twisted the story became. Brittney was orchestrating a legal coup. And Clinton? He was too lost in the family's web of deceit to see it clearly, or maybe he just didn't care anymore. One afternoon, I followed Brittney's routine closely, watching her leave the divorce lawyer's office disguised behind oversized sunglasses and a forced smile. Her every move screamed confidence, like she was untouchable, but even the queen of manipulation has a weak spot. That night, a whispered phone call from Travis, the loose-lipped cousin who once slipped up texting me, confirmed my suspicions. Brittney was pressuring Clinton to sign a settlement that would cut me out entirely. No support, no estate share, nothing. I felt the old familiar pang of betrayal, but this time it came with a plan. With Margot's help, I drafted a counteroffer that exposed Brittney and Graham's conflict, threatened to bring their misconduct to light, and demanded transparency on every asset linked to the family trust. It was a legal grenade tossed into their perfectly staged divorce play. The fallout? Brittney's veneer of control cracked. At a recent mediation, I saw her glare at me, eyes hard and calculating, like a cornered animal. She hissed through clenched teeth, "You don't know what you're messing with." "Oh, but I do," I replied calmly, "and I'm just getting started." In the Cold War between me and Brittney, this new revelation changed everything. She wasn't just a saboteur. She was sleeping with the enemy, using her lover inside the system to dismantle me piece by piece. But for every secret she wielded, I had one too. And in this twisted family saga, the real winner would be the one who exposed the most dirt first. The deeper I dug, the darker the Coates family's secrets became. What started as a bitter divorce war had morphed into something much bigger, white-collar warfare where the prize wasn't just love lost, but an empire built on blood and money. Clinton wasn't just my husband. He was the trustee of their late father's estate, a sprawling fortune carefully hidden behind layers of trusts, offshore accounts, and shell corporations. Every decision he made rippled through the family's finances, controlling who got what and when. And Brittney? She was eyeing that fortune like a vulture circling a carcass, desperate to carve out her share. But it wasn't as simple as just signing divorce papers. Timing was everything. If Clinton divorced me before the final disbursement of the estate, Brittney stood to gain double, a bigger slice of the pie without having to share it with me. That's when the game changed. One evening, after a particularly tense day of legal back and forths, Margot called me with news that made my blood run cold. "I've got access to some documents from the estate's legal filings," she said, voice low with excitement. "Clinton's been moving money around offshore accounts under different names. Accounts that don't show up on the estate ledger." My heart pounded. "They're hiding assets," she continued, "and the trail leads right back to Brittney." The realization hit me like a punch. This wasn't just a bitter family feud. It was financial sabotage, and I was the target. I spent sleepless nights poring over financial statements, bank records, and trust documents that Margot had managed to obtain through subpoenas and insider sources. What I uncovered was staggering. Multiple transfers of millions from the estate trust to offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands and Switzerland. Payments labeled vaguely as consulting fees and family management expenses that, in reality, funneled money straight into Brittney's personal accounts. Evidence of forged signatures on estate documents, signatures that bore Clinton's name but were clearly tampered with. It was a criminal web, and Brittney was at the center. But what was Clinton's role in this? Was he complicit or just a pawn? The answer came in an unexpected place. A voicemail from Evelyn, the family's longtime estate manager, who had recently been fired under suspicious circumstances. "Listen," she whispered nervously when I called. "Clinton's been scared. He's been pressured to sign off on things he didn't fully understand. Brittney's been calling the shots behind the scenes, telling him what to do, who to pay, and how to cover the tracks." Evelyn's voice trembled as she added, "She's ruthless, and she's not just after money. She wants to control everything." That control extended beyond the bank accounts. The medical trust set up for their dying father was another battleground. I found documents showing money siphoned from the medical fund, funds meant for his care and medical expenses, redirected to accounts tied to Brittney's business ventures. I felt sick. This wasn't just a divorce or a family dispute. This was theft, fraud, a betrayal on every level. I shared everything with Margot, who was already preparing a counterattack. "This is solid evidence," she said, "enough to challenge the trustee's authority and possibly criminal charges. But we have to move fast before they bury the trail deeper." I agreed. With a renewed sense of purpose, I scheduled a private meeting with Clinton. I confronted him directly about the offshore accounts and the medical trust money. At first, he denied everything, eyes darting, voice shaky. But as I laid out the facts, the cracks appeared. "I didn't know everything," he admitted finally, voice barely above a whisper. "Brittney controlled the finances more than I realized. She made me sign papers, told me what to say. I was scared to lose her, to lose the family. I felt a mix of pity and anger. How had my husband become so entangled in his sister's web? "It's not too late, Clinton," I said firmly. "You can still do the right thing." But deep down, I knew this fight was bigger than any one of us. As I walked out of that meeting, I felt the weight of the Coates legacy bearing down on me, the tangled mess of family, money, lies, and betrayal. This wasn't just about my marriage ending. It was about exposing a conspiracy that had been years in the making, and I was ready to tear it apart, piece by piece. If there's one thing I've learned about the Coates family, it's that the money doesn't just buy privilege, it buys silence, but silence cracks when you know where to knock. And I was finally knocking on the right doors. With the evidence Margot and I had uncovered, offshore accounts, embezzled medical funds, forged documents, we knew there had to be more. Something central, something buried deep in the very foundation of the estate. And that something was the trust itself. The Coates patriarch, Howard Coates Sr., had died under murky circumstances. Officially, it was complications from early-onset Alzheimer's. But the timeline never sat right with me. The speed of the decline. The sudden changes to his will shortly before he passed. And, most damning, the new trustee designation, Clinton. A man who once couldn't be trusted with an Amazon password was now responsible for an 8-figure estate? It reeked of manipulation. Margot was already 5 steps ahead. She filed a formal petition for a forensic audit of the estate, citing suspected financial misconduct and conflicts of interest. Normally, this would be met with legal resistance, but she timed it perfectly. An anonymous tip had just been leaked to the IRS about suspicious transfers tied to the Coates Medical Trust. Suddenly, we weren't just digging. So were the feds, but the real bombshell came from an unexpected place. Howard Sr.'s former nurse, Sheila Raymond. She reached out through Margot's office after catching wind of the legal fireworks. Nervous and shaky, Sheila met me at a diner outside of town, glancing over her shoulder like she was about to confess to a crime. "I don't know what I'm getting into," she whispered. "But I can't carry the guilt anymore." "What guilt?" I asked, voice steady. She sighed. 2 weeks before Mr. Coates passed, he asked me to help him mail a letter. Said it was the real version of his trust. But Brittney came in that night, earlier than expected. She found the envelope before I could send it. My heart stopped. She opened it, read it, and then locked herself in his study for hours, Sheila said. The next day, Howard was confused, agitated. He kept asking me if I'd sent it. When I said no, he panicked. He kept muttering, "She can't take this from me. She can't rewrite my words." Sheila didn't know what happened to the letter. But I did. Brittney had destroyed it. Or worse, replaced it. That moment gave her the leverage she needed to secure Clinton as trustee and control the estate's final terms. And if Sheila's memory served her right, that real version, it left the bulk of the trust not to Brittney, not even to Clinton, but to me. Margot's face lit up when I recounted the meeting. If we can prove a second trust document existed, especially if it overrides the amended one, we could shake the entire foundation of their financial claim. Still, we needed more than a memory, we needed proof. That's when I remembered the old safe in Howard's lake house, the one Clinton never opened after the funeral. A vintage wall fixture, sealed tight, with a combination only Howard ever knew. I drove there alone, heart pounding, and stared at the silent relic hidden behind a painting of a sailboat. The combination came to me like a ghost whispering, the date of our wedding. Howard always said it was I entered the numbers. June 15th, 17. Click. The door creaked open, revealing a manila folder labeled Contingency Instructions, Private Addendum to Trust. Inside was a letter, handwritten and notarized, dated 10 days before Howard's death. His scrawl was shaky, but unmistakable. He wrote, "If anything happens to me and this letter is discovered posthumously, know that the version of the trust filed after May 1st is a forgery. My final wishes leave the majority of the estate to the only person I trust to preserve this family's integrity. My name. Should Clinton or Brittney interfere, consider this letter legal testament of my intent. They've lost their way. She is my true legacy." Tears burned my eyes. I took photos, backed up scans to 3 cloud accounts, and rushed the original to Margot's office. "This changes the entire game," she said, barely containing her grin. "This is a will override, a trust killer. It turns Brittney and Clinton from beneficiaries into fraudsters and potentially felons." Overnight, the dynamic shifted. No longer was I the woman being pushed out. I was the rightful heir, the named protector of Howard's estate. And now, I held the most powerful weapon of all. Truth, backed by paper and ink. But I also knew something else. Brittney wouldn't go down quietly. We'd pierced the veil of lies. Next, we'd rip it apart in front of the entire Coates clan. The dinner was coming. This time, it was my table. And the menu? Receipts. Ruin. And the end of their perfect illusion. By now, the Coates family wasn't just unraveling. It was combusting from the inside out. The documents in the lake house safe had flipped the story. What began as a betrayal between husband and wife had become a war for legacy, loyalty, and law. Margot moved fast. She filed an injunction to freeze all disbursements from the Coates family trust. Brittney's world, once gilded in privilege and untouchable arrogance, started cracking. Her emails went unanswered. Her luxury SUV vanished from its usual reserved parking spot. Her so-called friends in real estate and philanthropy began pulling away, like rats sensing a sinking ship. But the more we pressed, the more the truth bubbled up, and it was filthier than either of us could have predicted. It started with a phone call from Gavin Morales, an independent financial auditor who'd once been hired by the Coates family to review their medical trust. He contacted Margot after reading the public court filings and offered to talk, off the record. "I didn't know what I was seeing at the time," Gavin said. But now, looking back, the red flags were everywhere. He revealed that large sums from the Coates Medical Trust, supposedly earmarked for Howard Sr.'s care and legacy medical programs, had been diverted to a mysterious shell company called Silver Pine Development Group. "I couldn't trace the company ownership," he admitted. "They used layered LLCs. But I remember something strange. A P.O. box listed in Nevada tied to all the filings. Same P.O. box Brittney once used to register her old boutique business when she moved back to the States. A coincidence? Not likely." With that breadcrumb, Margot hired a private forensic accounting team. They peeled back the layers and found what we feared. Brittney was the silent owner of Silver Pine Development. Even worse, Clinton was listed as a financial officer on one of the sub-entities, under the pseudonym C.R. Harlow, a name he once used on college prank sites. Juvenile alias. Massive fraud. But that was just the start. The Silver Pine scheme had siphoned nearly $4.2 million from the Coates Medical Trust over 3 years, under the guise of building community health centers that never broke ground. The money had been funneled into luxury real estate, personal stock investments, and, quote, consulting fees paid directly to Graham Ryland's firm. Yes, Graham, Clinton's divorce attorney and Brittney's clandestine lover, was knee-deep in it too. His firm had received $300,000 in, quote, advisor fees from Silver Pine for logistical support, though no documentation outlined what that meant. When Margot subpoenaed his financials, she found matching deposits into Brittney's private account, transferred days later, under the memo, reimbursement. It wasn't just corruption, it was a criminal enterprise. The Coates siblings and Graham had formed an unholy trifecta, right-pointing arrow. Clinton provided access. Right pointing arrow Brittney moved the money. Right pointing arrow Graham cleaned it. Together they weaponized the estate to secure their grip on power. My divorce? It was never just personal. It was strategic. If they cut me out quickly, they'd minimize the risk of exposure. But they underestimated me. They didn't realize I'd follow the scent to the very heart of their rot. And just when I thought I'd uncovered every layer, Margot got a call from an anonymous burner phone. "You're looking in the wrong place," the raspy voice said. "The trust fund is just the tip. Ask about the insurance policy, the one Howard didn't want." Click. Margot and I froze. Insurance policy? We found it buried in a decades-old file scanned into Howard Sr.'s estate records. A $2.5 million life insurance policy taken out shortly before his Alzheimer's diagnosis, filed under Clinton's name as the beneficiary. Howard never wanted it. The medical trust was supposed to handle everything. But the paperwork showed a forged signature, dated 1 week before his mental competency came into question. We pulled medical records. That week, Howard had been hospitalized after wandering into traffic. He couldn't have signed anything. Clinton, or someone close to him, had forged the signature to ensure a direct payout upon Howard's death. Suddenly, his complications seemed more suspicious. Had his decline been natural? Or had someone accelerated it? Margot took the file to a medical forensics consultant, who flagged inconsistencies in the medication log, high doses of sedatives, unusual changes in prescription timing, missing nurses' notes during the final 48 hours. I felt a chill crawl up my spine. This wasn't just about greed anymore. This was a potential homicide. Brittney, Clinton, Graham. Each had motive. Each had access. Each stood to benefit enormously from Howard's death being quick and clean. And I had become the one person with enough threads to weave a noose. We were past divorce now, past betrayal. This wasn't a family imploding, it was a dynasty detonating. And I had lit the fuse. The next dinner was coming. Invitations sent. Guest lists set. They thought they were done with me. But I was just getting started. The Coates estate had always been a fortress, grand, cold, and unshakably polished. Marble floors. A piano no one played. A family portrait above the fireplace that painted a lie so well, you'd forget who was missing from the frame. But on this night, the house would host something it had never seen before. The truth. I sent the invitations myself, hand-delivered. Gold-trimmed, embossed in navy blue ink, just like the ones Brittney loved to use for her fundraisers and luncheons. Only this time, the RSVP line read, "Attendance expected. Cameras optional. Truth mandatory." It wasn't just a dinner, it was a reckoning. Everyone came. Of course they did. Curiosity always overpowers fear. Clinton arrived first, tense and rehearsed, wearing the same smug face I once thought was charming. Brittney slithered in next, all pearls and poise, masking panic behind a glass of wine. Graham trailed in afterward, clearly unaware that his career was about to detonate in real time. Other family members, cousins, aunts, Howard's old business partners, they all filed in, seated politely at the long mahogany table like it was Thanksgiving. Only this time, I was at the head. "Thank you all for coming," I began, tapping my glass once. "I know this gathering may feel unconventional, but this family has long valued appearances over reality. And I think we're all overdue for a dose of the latter." Brittney gave a brittle laugh. "Is this some sort of monologue, sweetheart? We're here for dinner, not—" I cut her off by placing a thick leather-bound folder on the table with a heavy thud. "No, Brittney, you're here for answers. Or maybe an alibi." Her glass paused halfway to her lips. I turned to Clinton. "Tell me, darling, did you forge your father's signature for a $2.5 million life insurance payout before his mind was gone for good? Or was that your sister's idea?" Gasps rippled. Clinton went ghost pale. I didn't wait. "Margot," I said. From the back of the room, my attorney, Margot Jennings, stepped forward. wheeling in a cart stacked with files, a projector, and a portable screen. A click of a remote, and the wall came alive with documents, scanned copies of the insurance policy, the forged signature, Howard's deteriorating medical chart. I know it's a lot, I continued calmly, so let me summarize. The Coates Medical Trust was looted through a shell company called Silverpine Development, owned secretly by Brittney, and managed with fake consulting contracts paid to Graham Ryland's firm. Aunt Celeste gasped, looking horrified. Oh, but it gets worse, Margot added, her voice crisp. We traced over $4 million stolen from the medical fund, meant for Alzheimer's research and end-of-life care, used instead to finance personal investments, buy real estate, and pay off legal fees, I finished, specifically for the divorce attorney sleeping with Brittney while representing my husband. Silence thundered. I turned to Graham. You're not just unethical, you're criminal. Your bank transfers to Brittney's account match the amounts paid to you by Silverpine. And I forwarded them to the Bar Association and the district attorney. He stood up. This is outrageous. You have no proof? I asked, lifting a USB drive. Everything's here, plus the original handwritten trust from Howard. The one naming me as the sole beneficiary, if I expose the corruption. Brittney surged to her feet, face flushing red. This is revenge! You're just bitter! No, I said softly, you're the one who's bitter, Brittney. Bitter that Howard chose me over you. Bitter that I treated your father with dignity while you schemed behind his back. And now you're caught. The front door opened. 2 plainclothes officers stepped into the room. Brittney Coates? One asked. You're under arrest for wire fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy to commit financial crimes. It was surreal, watching her hands being cuffed next to the charcuterie board. Clinton tried to bolt. Another officer intercepted him. You're not being arrested yet, I said coldly, but a federal investigation is open. You might want to prepare for an audit. And a new lawyer. Graham won't be eligible much longer. Graham didn't speak. His face said it all. Stunned, sweating, ruined. Then came the final twist. Margot handed me an envelope with the results of a background check she'd quietly run weeks ago. Just in case, she'd said. Inside were documents linking Graham to another embezzlement case from years ago, under a different firm name. He'd reinvented himself. This wasn't his first scheme. It was just the first one that didn't work. I've already leaked the story, I said. Tonight's going to be more famous than any gala you ever threw, Brittney. As the door slammed behind her, I looked at the rest of the family, silent, shaken. I'm not trying to destroy the Coates name, I said, gathering the papers. I'm trying to save what's left of it. No one responded. They just sat there, stripped of illusion, exposed by truth. And for the first time, I didn't feel like an outsider. I felt like the only one left standing. The sun set on the Coates estate with eerie stillness, like the house itself was holding its breath. Everything that needed to be said had been spoken at the previous dinner, the betrayals exposed, the guilty arrested. But there was one final matter left unresolved, and it was why I invited Clinton back one last time, just him. No entourage, no family, no Graham. He arrived hesitant, a man who had once commanded every room, now looking like a deer, left in the aftermath of a collision. He wore his shame like an ill-fitting suit, wrinkled, hollow, and 30 pounds lighter. I served 2 plates at the long, empty dining table. The same table where his mother had once berated me for bringing store-bought mashed potatoes, where Brittney had once announced her engagement like it was the crowning moment of civilization, and where Clinton had told me, on our first anniversary, that he was proud to call me his wife. Funny, the places that become battlegrounds. Sit, I said, eat, or don't. I just have something you need to hear. He lowered himself into the chair, eyes darting. If this is about pressuring me into a deal. No, I interrupted. That part is done. The estate is being transferred to me. The court upheld the final version of Howard's will. Brittney's being held without bail. Graham's been disbarred. And your assets? The overseas ones? They've been frozen. His jaw clenched, but he didn't argue. Then what is this? He asked. A funeral, I said plainly. Not for Howard, not even for our marriage. This is the burial of the lie you've been living. Clinton leaned back, trying to regain some trace of control. What more could you possibly reveal? I reached into my folder and pulled out a letter, written in shaky handwriting on yellowing paper. It was dated 6 months before Howard's death, long before his condition was officially deemed, quote, incompetent. I found this in the lining of Howard's old medical folder, I said, sliding it across. Addressed to you. But I don't think he ever gave it to you. Clinton read the first few lines, then stopped cold. He stammered. I didn't know. The letter was devastating. In it, Howard revealed he had grown suspicious of Brittney's financial maneuvering. He wrote of his desire to restructure the trust, to cut her out entirely, and to make Clinton the sole executor, only if he promised not to divorce me. You were the only decent one left, Howard wrote, and she brought light into this family. I trust her. You shouldn't let Brittney poison what you've built. Clinton looked up at me, eyes rimmed in red. I swear, I didn't know he felt that way. I thought he just tolerated you, like the rest of them, because you let them think that, I said, because you needed to be loved by them more than you needed to stand by me. He hung his head. I tried, he whispered, but they made it seem like you were the one tearing us apart. I stood slowly, walked to the fireplace, and retrieved a small velvet box from the mantel. Inside was my original wedding ring. I placed it gently in front of him. I don't want this back, I said, not out of anger, but because it no longer belongs to me. Or to you. It's a relic of who we were, before the lies. He stared at it, silent. Then I added the final twist, the one I'd kept hidden even from Margot. By the way, I said, pulling out one last envelope, Howard didn't just leave me the estate. He left me guardianship of something else. Clinton frowned. What? I opened the envelope and slid out a deed. To a building. Coates Medical Center. Howard's pride and joy. The one thing he'd built with his own hands. The center Brittney had tried to defund through embezzlement. He changed the deed a week before he died, I said. He gave it to me in secret with a condition. Reopen the facility, expand it, and rename it. Clinton looked confused. Rename it to what? I smiled, bittersweet. The Jennings Coates Foundation for Memory and Recovery. A nod to Margot, a nod to me, a nod to the man who had wanted his legacy to outlive his disease. Clinton swallowed. So, that's it? I nodded. That's it. You'll serve your time. White collar, minimum security, maybe less if you cooperate. Brittney won't. Graham? I hope he rots. I moved toward the door. He called after me. Do you think we could have made it if things were different? I paused. No, I said softly, because even when you had a chance to choose me, you didn't. And that's what makes all the difference. And with that, I stepped out into the cool evening air. The Coates name would live on, but not because of them. Because of me. Because when they tried to erase me from the table, I built my own, and this time everyone would know who set the rules.